Ashley was walking down the forest path, leading her into the distance. The woman was in a foul mood, and all she wanted was to be alone with herself. The forests of Maine have been providing everyone with such an opportunity since ancient times, especially in the summer. Towering pine and fir trees soared their branches into the sky, seemingly shielding the forest dwellers from the daylight. Ashley had never ventured so far into the woods. Leaving marks on the tree branches, she kept moving forward. She was choking from the feeling of resentment, which prevented her from concentrating and regaining composure. God, why is this happening to me? They embarrassed me in front of everyone, and just a week before my own wedding, the woman lamented. Since Ashley had been walking through the woods for about an hour, pushing through dense bushes and piles of fallen trees, her exhausted body was slowly losing strength. It was understandable not everyone could endure such a hike, especially with the swamps nearby, where everything squelched beneath the feet, eager to drag one into the murky abyss. Since Ashley grew up in this area, she knew how to behave in the forest. She had collected mushrooms and berries in those thickets with her grandma, Lois, back in her childhood. In reality, Ashley wasn't her biological granddaughter. Mrs. Turner took her in from an orphanage when she was a year old. Ashley had never seen her parents, but judging by the photo in the black frame, they had died a long time ago. Those who knew Lois Turner well knew that she largely lived off the forest, which generously shared its gifts with her. Whether it was picking berries with her granddaughter or gathering medicinal roots, Lois knew her way around the woods. And there were also mushrooms, of course. They were her specialty. Lois would never confuse the edible with the poisonous ones. Her granddaughter absorbed this knowledge as her childhood passed amidst the green expanses of Maine. Ashley's legs were weakened with fatigue as she arrived at yet another swamp. The quagmire, greenish and unstable, beckoned her suggestively, as if inviting her for a visit without the possibility of returning. Maybe I should just take the plunge into the abyss. Just like that, forget everything and everyone, once and for all, Ashley thought, but immediately pushed that idea away. No, she wouldn't do that. Peter didn't deserve her drowning herself over him, and Ashley understood this better than anyone else. No, he was attractive, sure, but there was a good reason why all the local women ogled him and invited him over. But that's about all the merits Peter had. He was too soft and compliant. One could even say that he was spineless. He would do whatever his parents said, never having an opinion of his own. What did I ever see in him? Although, truth be told, I simply liked him at first glance. Ashley pondered. Suddenly, a strange sound pulled the woman out of her state of mournful contemplation. Its tone was such that it involuntarily made Ashley shudder. As if on cue, the croaking frogs fell silent and the birds settled in their nests, preparing to sleep. Twilight was approaching. Being in the forest at this time was rather dangerous. At that moment, Ashley heard the strange sound again. It came from the nearby bushes and resembled either a sigh or a muffled groan. Who's there? Could it be a person who wandered so far into the woods? Ashley thought with concern. Having carefully parted the bushes with her hands, the woman gasped quietly. There was a large she-wolf lying on the moss-covered ground. Her sides were round, heaving in rhythm with her intermittent breathing. Having heard the noise, the she-wolf glanced at Ashley. "What's wrong, sweetheart? Are you feeling unwell?" Ashley asked softly, doing it as if talking to a person, not a wild creature. Naturally, the she-wolf didn't reply, merely groaning in response once again. The predator was clearly suffering from severe pain originating in her round belly. Ashley looked closer and barely suppressed a surprised cry. The she-wolf was pregnant and preparing to give birth right at that moment. Now, dear, I'll help you. Just don't be afraid and trust me," Ashley whispered and began to massage the predator's swollen belly. The she-wolf growled deeply, then stealthily licked the woman's hand. Ashley smiled and continued to stroke the predator's belly. She knew what to do in such cases since she helped her grandma treat cows, sheep, and other domestic animals early on in her life. Grandma Lois loved animals and instilled this love in her granddaughter. Together, they assisted cows in the birthing process, fed newborn piglets with milk, and raised chickens in an incubator. The locals knew that if their animals fell ill, they needed to go see Lois Turner. she could heal them and give them advice if needed. Some people even claim that the old woman knew a special secret and could talk to animals. Of course, if Lois had known about these rumors, she would have laughed them off and shaken her head with a mysterious smile. She never had any magical abilities, and all of her success came solely from her love for animals. As Ashley stroked the she-wolf's rounded sides, she kept whispering tender words, gradually increasing the pressure. Soon, the first pup appeared, followed by the second and the third. Ashley's joy knew no bounds. That day, she hadn't helped just anyone but the little inhabitants of the forest who, in a year or so, would become full-fledged members of the wolf pack. Thoughts of Peter's betrayal faded into the background, replaced by the joy of having managed to help those in need. Darkness slowly descended over the forest. The day was giving way to the night. Knowing that spending the night in the woods was unsafe, Ashley hastily used some branches to construct a makeshift shelter for the she-wolf and her pups, so that they wouldn't have to spend the night under the open sky and then headed home. If it were anyone else in her place, they would have surely gotten lost in the dense forest. But Ashley knew all the paths since childhood, and even if she did end up in a new spot, she always found her way back. Goodbye, Mother Wolf. Maybe we'll meet again someday. Ashley bid farewell and hurried towards the edge of the forest. The she-wolf watched her depart, then started licking the gray pups that were huddling against her chest. Ashley returned home very late when the moon was already shining high in the sky, and the crickets and cicadas had begun their eternal night song. Mrs. Turner greeted her at the doorstep. "Where have you been, dear? I was getting worried. I was even thinking of calling the local sheriff." It was always like that. As soon as she disappeared from Grandma's sight for a couple of hours, she immediately raised the alarm. "Everything's fine, Grandma. I was by the swamps, and I helped a she-wolf give birth," the young woman added after a brief pause. "Oh, that was risky, my love. I'm not sure you should have done it. Wolves, they aren't your domestic dogs. You know that, right? What if they had attacked you? It's impossible to tell what's on their mind, dear." "Oh no, Grandma. This wolf was kind. She licked my hand, and she looked at me so plaintively. How could I have not helped her?" Ashley retorted. Grandma shook her head but didn't condemn her granddaughter's actions. The main thing was that she was unharmed and got distracted from her problems. Although it probably wouldn't last long, but it was still better this way than crying all night with her face buried in a pillow. Ashley met Peter 2 years ago. He was a handsome and tall young man. He used to live in another town where he unsuccessfully tried to finish med school. But when Peter was expelled during his sophomore year due to poor academic performance, he realized that med school wasn't for him. When he returned home, he tried to engage in farming, helping his father on their vast agricultural lands. It was there that he met Ashley, who got a seasonal job at the farm, helping to harvest corn. Peter considered himself irresistible ever since high school, where he used to conquer women's hearts with just a glance of his dreamy, sky-blue eyes. But that trick didn't work with Ashley, and he had to spend about a month and a half wooing her. Why is she so stubborn? That's just weird, Peter puzzled. But Ashley wasn't pretentious or spoiled by male attention. She had been reading romance novels since childhood and believed in the sincerity of feelings and the strength of the human spirit. Peter, on the other hand, only thought of one thing. Ashley's unattainability fueled his passion, prompting him to make reckless decisions. Tired of courting Ashley, Peter enlisted as a Marine and left to serve on contract for a long 2 years, which seemed like an eternity to Ashley. Interestingly, it was the separation that normalized their relationship, bringing peace and harmony into it. Also, before leaving, Peter asked Ashley to promise that she would wait for his return. Time passed, days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ashley wrote letters to her boyfriend, called him during his leaves, and eagerly awaited his return. Frankly speaking, Lois Turner didn't share her granddaughter's euphoria, understanding perfectly well that marrying Peter would bring her granddaughter a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, the elderly woman's prophecy came true with astonishing accuracy, and it happened on the day of their engagement, which was a month after Peter bid farewell to the Marines and returned home. That day, Ashley tried to persuade her grandmother to come and meet the parents of her fiancé, Dorothy and Richard Browns. But Mrs. Turner flatly refused to participate in any of the festivities, explaining it by a long-standing feud with that family. I have no business there. Why should I get acquainted with them when I already know everyone in person? Ashley simply shrugged and went to meet her future in-laws. By the time she arrived, Dorothy Brown had prepared an excellent dinner, and Richard had fetched some house drinks from the cellar. Peter had already taken Ashley's hand to solemnly announce the engagement to his parents when the door of the house swung open and a young woman appeared at the threshold. She was holding a year-old baby in her arms. A stroller stood a little to the side, which was probably how the baby managed to complete the journey. "Excuse me, did you want something, miss?" Dorothy Brown asked in surprise. The stranger smiled and cast a mocking glance at Peter. "Of course I wanted something, ma'am. I didn't come here by chance. I came here to let you get to know your grandson." "My grandson?" Dorothy asked, astonished. "Yes, your grandson, ma'am. Peter and I, how should I put it? We had a relationship when he was in the Marines. You can see the results for yourself. Kevin is the spitting image of Peter, and any DNA test will confirm it." The young mother replied with the same mocking expression on her face. Having looked at Peter with eyes full of tears, Ashley realized that the guest was telling the truth. As it turned out later, the stranger's name was Nicole Wilson, and Peter did have a relationship with her during his military service. "God, that's such a low blow!" "Go to hell with your engagement and your wedding," Ashley exclaimed angrily and stood up from the table. She was followed with cries and pleas and even threats, but it was all in vain. Ashley had already made her choice in life, and there was no place for betrayal in it, which meant that there was no place for Peter in her heart. Seeing her tearful granddaughter at the doorstep, Lois Turner understood everything without words. "Well, he broke your heart, that scoundrel. I knew it wouldn't end well," the old woman thought. And now, looking at her completely changed granddaughter, she couldn't believe her eyes. The incident by the swamp really did change Ashley, making her forget about her fiancé's betrayal. Instead of grieving, she directed all of her efforts to help the she-wolf and her offspring. Ashley even came up with the name for the she-wolf. She called her Diana. Over time, the wolf got used to Ashley so much that she even let the young woman pick up her pups, knowing that she wouldn't do anything to harm them. It was only when the pups grew up and started following their mother's trail that Ashley realized that it was time to say goodbye. Of course, the young woman understood that life didn't stand still and that she would have to bid farewell to Diana at some point. The she-wolf understood that too. The predator approached her savior, placed her paws on her knees, and touched her hand with her nose. "Goodbye, Diana. There's nothing keeping me here anymore. I'm going to Portland to study veterinary medicine," Ashley whispered, stroking the she-wolf's neck. The young woman and the predator never saw each other again. As promised, Ashley enrolled in college and started studying to become a veterinarian. Throughout this time, she silently thanked the forest predator for saving her from an impulsive decision at the swamp. After all, if it weren't for the she-wolf and her offspring, who knows how things would have ended for Ashley. After receiving her diploma, Ashley returned to her hometown. But she didn't come alone. She returned with her fiancé, who came from a good and kind family. Together with her fiancé, Ashley opened a small veterinary clinic where she treated all those in need. As for Peter, he married Nicole, as the little boy was indeed his son. It's been said that the man was happy in his marriage and didn't regret how everything turned out. He even occasionally brought his pets to Ashley, and they received the same high-quality care as everyone else.